You're listening to the Vanu Podcast, the podcast making you invulnerable to the coercion of the state and the servile society. Visit our website for free resources to aid you in your pursuit of self-liberation, old Vanu publications, podcasts, guest articles, and much more. Go to vanupodcast.com. And now, your hosts, Shane and Jason.
All right, here we go. Okay, and welcome to another episode of the Vanu Podcast, the podcast making you invulnerable to coercion. Hopefully I'm coming through okay. Yeah, it's always a goddamn adventure when it comes to me trying to live stream. So yeah, this time YouTube, I already fulfilled my legal requirements, and I ensured that this video was not for fucking children. So yeah, it's not for children. So that issue is out of the way. This time though, apparently dropped frames. Yeah, drop frames are fun. And I checked my my internet speed. All that was good. I don't know why. It was at like 90%. So like 90% plus drop frames, like you wouldn't be able to. I don't know how bad that would be. So I didn't even. I figured I'd try to resolve that, and we're down to less than 30%. So hopefully it's coming through okay. Hopefully audio is coming through fine. Looks like we got 7 people here. Wow. Okay, that was more than. You never know with with a mid-morning, midweek live stream, what's going to happen. So go ahead and give some shout outs here in chat. Phoenix of Liberty, good to see you again. Beats Ernie's Trump report any day. Yeah, we aren't going to talk about Dolan. I don't even know what's going on with the impeachment hearings. It's all just a political circus anyway. It's nothing to do with freedom, nothing to do with self-liberation. And again, like I could give a shit less about Trump's impeachment hearings. Where's the investigation into this massive human trafficking ring, carried out by very people very high up in government. I don't care about anything else until that gets investigated, and it's not going to, of course. So, Bruno, looks like you're Bruno Ray's back again, sick of scrolling through my feed and finding nothing but libertarian podcasts discussing debates and impeachment. You can share recipes for an hour and it'd be more useful and appreciated. That's been one of my frustrations for years, man. I understand the philosophy part of it. The philosophy is important. It definitely is. But yeah, most podcasts are primarily dedicated to news cycle bullshit. Not here though. Certainly not here. So let's see. Loud and clear. Okay. Very good. Very good. So let's go ahead and get on with it here. So this podcast, everything found on the website, is covered by BIPCOT's no government license, which allows reuse and modification to anyone except for governments and the pledges thereof. Learn more by visiting bipcot.org. So yeah, feel free to drop any questions or comments in chats. I've got a few things to talk about, but of course, if there's anything else, preferably not in the news cycle, anything else, related to self-liberation, Vanu, Elliott publications, anything like that, certainly love to talk about it. And yeah, please do feel free to drop those in chat. So first off, if you didn't catch my last live stream with Max Hillebrand, I'd highly recommend you do so. We talked about his journey to becoming unbanked and how he lives primarily off of Bitcoin. Certainly worth checking out. It's doing pretty well, view-wise. So people are enjoying it, and I think you will too. I certainly think you will too. So today I've got a few things to cover. First off, a potential libertarian intentional community that I was made aware of via email. I will provide an update on my health journey over the past few months or so. Yes, it's totally relevant to Vanu. And then I'll discuss the holiday deals we're running over at Liberty Under Attack Publications, which is the sponsor of this podcast. So let me just take a look back and chat here one more time. And everything looks good on YouTube. I will go ahead and continue here. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So the potential libertarian community. In my line of work in the alternative media, I receive a lot of interesting emails. One of those came this past week. The individual requested that he remain anonymous, but encouraged me to extend the proposal to my audience. So that's exactly what I'm doing today, and that's kind of the entire reason why I did this live stream. Anyway, I needed to get this out there, and plus there's some other things I wanted to chat about. So I'll basically read the emails verbatim, since he or she goes into quite some detail. So the first email, and this I'm so happy. Like, so there's this one, and then there's, I don't know. People are finally, there's a lot of creativity happening in the self-liberation realm. I'll leave it there for now. But there's a lot of creativity. People are coming up with some really, really incredible ideas. So I will. You'll definitely see more of that in the next couple days or so. I'm gonna be putting up a post on the VONU website, vonupodcast.com. I guess highlighting one of these potential strategies that someone sent me, and it's brilliant. Like I love that people are getting in this mindset of there's no clear path to self-liberation, right? Now obviously, VONU and lifestyle changes, it's all well and good, but there's a lot to be explored, certainly a lot to be explored, and you'll certainly see more of that in the coming days and weeks. So the email. So again, it's going to be basically verbatim. Good day. I'm writing regarding the possibility of making a community that helps people of the same mindset live and possibly work together. For your information, there is an undeveloped tract of land located in Watauga. Don't know how to pronounce that. Watauga County, North Carolina, home of Appalachian State University, that might be of interest to you or some of your listeners. The land in question is owned outright by the owner, and if others would utilize it using earth-friendly and/or traditional homesteading methods, including people living in teepees on the property, permission to use the property for ongoing and sustainable projects might be allowed with no cost. The only cost is to respect the property and not pollute it, which is something I am confident we would not do anyway. The property has no electricity, and the Watauga River runs on the edge of it. Therefore, getting water of some type is no trouble. The property owner is a huge fan of recycling, and better still, not using polluting chemicals and packaging in the interest of keeping the land clean and habitable. The owner does not currently live on the property, but wants the land to be well cared for. Using pack-it-in and pack-it-out principles is high on the list of priorities. The property is almost entirely wooded, surrounded by other undeveloped tracts of land. Access to the property is through a dirt road, which might require four-wheel drive during inclement conditions. During dry conditions, most vehicles can get in and out with no trouble. If you would like to consider helping to make this property useful or available as an inhabited primitive camping site and working farm, please get in touch, and we can see if we will be able to work out an agreement with the property owner. The most important thing is to let this piece of land be utilized as a sustainable piece of land with environmentally friendly practices by people who respect it and who will not do objectionable things to it. That is, people who are not going to engage in illegal activities or who would willingly violate community standards of acceptable behavior. That is, if people will behave according to the standards of the greater community at large of Watauga County, they should have no trouble with the property owner. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to let me know. I would love to be able to help you and the property owner work out something that would be beneficial to you all and to those who would like to learn. At this point, he wants to remain private. He's interested in promoting a place where people can live freely and not have to worry so much while living their libertarian ideals, although the lifestyle might be a bit hardscrabble. There's nothing stopping them from only staying and respecting the land, but the chance to work hard is definitely there. Build it and they will come, as someone once said. The question at this point is how to proceed. This is an opportunity for enterprising pioneers of sorts. So, yes, that's one of the emails regarding the intentional community, and I responded and basically said, can I do an episode on this, or just an episode post, something to make it public? He said, of course. And there was one further development with some more details. So this is the third email. I spoke to the owner just now. This was a good idea, and the property owner has a proposal to be added to anyone who may be interested. Here it follows. In the interest of making small, humble tracts and properties available for use by those who love freedom and getting out of that society, maybe a network of little lots of land who have trouble with bad weather and need repair might be in order. For instance, maybe someone in one place had a crop failure and needs to help to make a better system to utilize water distribution among the garden field, and someone else needs to build or repair a building on the property. Think barn raisings. Many people in different places would need a caretaker, or caretakers plural, who might even rotate or concentrate their efforts at certain times. For instance, a southern property might need something done in the winter, while someone in a northern locale might have less to do during that same time period. In any case, it is a good chance to maximize the potential output, if agrarian, of a property. maybe a network of free zones, if I may call it that, would be possible. I guess house rules apply to where you are. For instance, on the property I have proposed, it is not allowing one thing while someone might allow the same thing somewhere else. Like house rules, someone prohibits drinking in the house, in their house while another permits it. So that is basically the update. I think it's fantastic. For me personally, I'm working on my homestead here in Southern Illinois, and also it's just not a great time for me to relocate to North Carolina. There's really nothing for me in North Carolina anyway. I don't think I've ever been there. Maybe driven through there, but I don't think I've ever really been to North Carolina. But anyway. It's an interesting offer, no cost. Very certainly primitive and kind of off grid, but that's what some people are looking for. And for a lot of folks, investment capital or just the initial acquisition of the land is the most difficult part. So those two things out of the way, no cost, and as long as you abide by the caveats in there, basically respect the property, sustainable development, no polluting, that sort of stuff. So yeah, if anyone's interested, please shoot me an email, Shane@libertarianattack.com, and I would love to help facilitate the development of hopefully a libertarian intentional community in North Carolina. That would be incredible, and I'm always looking for other temporary autonomous zones, safe places, with like-minded people. So there's still something in my rational self-interest here. So so yeah, let me know, Shane@libertarianattack.com, or I'll drop a message in chat, and I can work on facilitating doing what I can. So I figured I'd bring that to your guys' attention. Don't know if anyone's going to act on it. I don't know if anyone's interested in specifically looking for something like that. But there it is. If you may be interested. So Phoenix, sounds like there's a contradiction in the initial offer. Building a community there is inherently illegal. What do you mean? I guess would you mind elaborating, Phoenix? Contradiction in the initial building a community there is inherently illegal. Why would it be illegal? I think the individual said that the land was owned outright, so I'm not sure why it would be illegal. But yeah, just provide some more information in chat, and we'll talk about it. So that's it's basically it for the potential libertarian community. So yeah, I guess the first part's out of the way, the investment capital and the acquisition of the land. The second part of it, I guess, is just strategic relocation. Are there people who are looking to live primitive lifestyles, return to the land, and pick up all their belongings, maybe their families, significant others, and just relocate. I guess we'll have to see, but the offer's out there, and I would be remiss if I didn't at least pass it on to you guys. All right. So Phoenix not having an occupancy permit. Ernie has been relying on occupancy permits lately. Yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Because the only thing that I would be concerned about is if it was in an incorporated or unincorporated area. Because if it was in an incorporated area, then it would be subject to nuisance abatement. So, like for example, going back to the SLV Just Us folks out in Castilla County, Colorado, it was in an incorporated area, and therefore they're required to have septic tanks. They're required to be connected to the grid. That's the only thing that I can think of that would be worthy of looking into. But it sounds like from the area, not that I'm familiar with this area of North Carolina, but just from the description, as well as the details that were laid out in the emails, I think I'm sure it's in an unincorporated area, pretty sure, and I'm not sure about occupancy permits. No, not really sure. Yeah, if you got a link to that, I'd certainly be interested in learning more. So, yeah, if you guys have anything else on the intentional community, feel free to drop that in chat, or Shane@libertarianattack.com is the email. So, yeah, I guess I'll go on and get on to the second topic here, and the stream stabilized. Thank God. Yeah, it went from like 50% drop frames down to 11. So, fantastic. So the second portion of the stream, it's titled "Health Liberation: Own Your Health, or It Will Own You." So I've talked about my type 1 diabetes often in this podcast, mainly in the context of being a barrier to my self liberation. So I talked about one of the hurdles to I guess one of the things I had to figure out before I went and lived in Acapulco for a couple months, month and a half, was how am I getting my diabetes supplies down there if I need them? It's just something I have to deal with for everything. Yeah. Um, Talked about it. That's the point. Well, over the course of the past few months, I've been, I guess you could say, on a little bit of a journey. So to back up, and again, this is relevant to Vonu. It's just going to take a brief moment of explanation beforehand. So to back up, I got diagnosed with this disease at age 15. My doctors, nutritionists, and endocrinologists always recommended high carbohydrate, high insulin diets. And so I was always on the blood sugar roller coaster. I'd eat a meal, my blood sugar would inevitably go up to 200 or 300. And then it would come crashing back down again, likely in just a few hours. Likely just a few hours later. So I'd have to eat. I'd eat a big meal, give insulin, I'd be forced to eat again. I was basically enslaved to food. I have to eat like every few hours, or my blood sugar would drop. So I thought that was totally normal. I thought that was just how diabetes was. Up until a few months ago. And I thought that was how things were, and then that's I was doing all right with my management of the disease. Now I never thought I was doing splendid. Like I knew there were ways I could improve, but I thought I was doing all right. My hemoglobin A1C, in other words, my average blood sugar over the course of the past 3 months would fluctuate, but with my current knowledge, was always high. My doctors would sometimes raise a little concern, but they never made me aware that even at my best. I was still at extreme risk for developing long-term complications of diabetes. So you have blindness, kidney failure, heart attacks, strokes, amputations, etc. There was never really a sense of urgency or worry. Maybe especially since I was 15, there's some leeway there. But especially the past 5 years, I take most of the responsibility for that. But then again, this isn't something that's I guess the solution I'll talk about isn't something that's promoted at all. Actually, the exact opposite is what's promoted by medical professionals. So anyway, earlier this year, I knew for a fact that I had to quit drinking alcohol, and I did. It's been 3 or 4 months, and actually relatively easy. So about midway through the year, I cut back on that. Yet was still in what I would now consider to be really, really poor health. Metabolic hell is what I've been calling it. Well, in August, I had an intuition that I should try a ketogenic, low carb diet in hopes of better managing my diabetes. Just kind of an inclination. I don't know. Like I knew I didn't feel great, but I just kind of decided to do it. Randomly decided to do it. Start doing it one day. So without any idea of what I was doing, I gave it a go, but continued my research. My research led me to an individual named Dr. Richard Bernstein in his book, The Diabetes Solution. Dr. Bernstein has been a type 1 diabetic for over 50 years, even before the time of blood sugar testing and insulin treatment. So he began a low-carb diet to manage his diabetes. It's basically the only solution back then. And okay, there it goes. Froze for a second. It's basically the only treatment back then was low carb diet. And with the advent of insulin, he was able to completely normalize his blood sugars. And by normalize, I mean 83 milligrams per deciliter. What a non-diabetic's blood sugar would be. And he also successfully reversed any diabetic complications that he had. I think he said he had kidney disease, and there were other things too, like diabetic neuropathy, nerve damage. All that stuff is pretty common if you have chronically high blood sugars for 10 plus years, as I have. So, he reversed all those though, and he's 85 years old. He's in better health than most of his non-diabetic counterparts. He's 85 and he works out for like 2 hours a day. Like he's in ridiculously good shape. And all of his markers. One of the if you have diabetes at all, your risk for heart attacks and strokes increases by like 65 to 85%. But all of his markers for that have come back. Great, and he's still alive, kicking, doing great things. So, that said, his book scared the living shit out of me. It definitely did. As I said a moment ago, I thought I was doing okay. That I was in pretty good health, all considered. No, certainly not. having chronically high blood sugars for around 11 years, I had developed metabolic syndrome, which I had high blood pressure. I'd gained weight. I mean, I didn't think I was fat by any means, but I was gaining some weight, insulin resistance, regular heartbeat, which would fall into the diabetic neuropathy aspect, etc. So I went from thinking I was in pretty good health to realizing, fuck, shit's not right. Things are not right. Things are not good here. So again, though, complications of diabetes are reversible through normalizing blood sugars. So that's what I set out to do. In just 3 months on the carnivore diets, intermittent fasting, and only meat, my average blood sugar is now 92 milligrams per deciliter. And again, the average blood sugar of a non-diabetic is 83. So compared to my last A1C, which was right before the Midwest Peace Liberty Fest, which was my average blood sugar was like 190. In 3 months, it's pretty incredible, pretty significant. So I'm not going to correct all the damage I did in this short time, in just a few months, but I feel so much better, and some of the symptoms of metabolic syndrome have disappeared. So there's progress, and that was the main reason. A few months ago, when I recorded podcasts, but there are a few of them that I haven't put out yet. I basically just pulled back from everything, and focused on that. But I agree with Dr. Bernstein that diabetes is an orphan disease. Newly diagnosed individuals will be shoved out of hospitals and put on a high-carb diet, ensuring that they will fall prey to the long-term complications of diabetes. It's inevitable if you follow their instructions. These doctors set a target blood sugar, typically like 120, 140, depending upon the individual, but it's always higher. Because they don't want you to have a low blood sugar and die. Because if they advise you to hit that target range and you die, then they could be sued. So like that's what most of this stems from, is if they give you the advice they should give you, and something happens. I mean, you're not going to die tomorrow from having a blood sugar of 250, but you could die if you have a blood sugar of like 15 or 20. So it's all about pushing off the long-term complications in favor of short-term successes, which they aren't successes at all in my opinion. But newly diagnosed individuals will be shoved out of hospitals and put on a high-carb diet, ensuring they will fall prey to these complications. It's really, really frustrating. It's a terrible thing. And I guess furthermore too, the nutritional standards advocated by the American Diabetes Association, they show, like, you can look at the science, you can look at all of the data, that A1Cs, the gold standard of measuring management of diabetes, A1Cs have never been higher. So clearly, what the mainstream medical professionals are advocating is not fucking working, right? Clearly, if the science is showing that, clearly what they're advocating is not working. And until they admit it, more diabetics are going to fucking die when all this could have been prevented. So it's frustrating. And this has been my focus for the past couple of months. Is basically I've had this disease for 10, basically almost 11 years, and I've learned more about it in the past 3 months just reading books than I ever learned from any of these so-called medical professionals. It's just standard of care. That's all it is. That's the term. It's just standard of care. It's not actually helping. It's not actually helpful or preventative or anything of that nature. So anyway, in the process of my research, I came across a huge community called Let Me Be 83. This is a community of type 1 diabetic adults, families, children, etc., who have all committed themselves to low-carb diets in pursuit of normal blood sugars, against all advice of their doctors. There's also a fascist book group, Keto for Type 1 Diabetics, and quite a flourishing community. I guess I'd say a loosely knit community on Twitter, and also Instagram. I mean, there's these folks everywhere, and I just didn't know it. So it's getting to the point now that mainstream doctors can't ignore it any longer. They see A1Cs go from 10% or 11%. Which would be, I don't know what the conversion of that would be to average blood sugars, but they see what they want you to be is under 5% as non-diabetic. So like these are twice the range. Like we're talking very, very high blood sugars, very high A1Cs, and within the span of a month or two, within the span of a few months, these are dropping significantly, putting type 1 diabetics out of immediate risk. So it's absolutely huge. It is huge. So I have 2 points to make in regards to my dialogue thus far. And first off, we talk a lot on this podcast about how if you want freedom, or in the case of Vonu, an invulnerability to coercion, you have to take it into your own hands. Fuck political crusading, fuck begging, and fuck falling prey to propaganda telling you to do those things. Well, this is exactly the mindset that is prevailing in these medically unauthorized diabetic communities. Individuals and families have done what the entire goddamn medical industry has failed to do for the past 50 or 60 years. Normalize blood sugars and eliminate the risk of diabetic complications. They've had 50 or 60 years to figure this out, to look at the data, to look at the science and realize that, maybe we aren't doing the right thing here. And Dr. Bernstein, he was an engineer before he decided to become a doctor. The entire reason he became a doctor was, and this is kind of the same political crusading mindset, but he figured, I've got a solution here. It's eating a low carb diet. If sugar is basically toxic to a diabetic, then maybe they shouldn't consume sugar or carbohydrates. Makes sense, right? Makes perfect sense. So he decided to become a doctor, so the American Diabetes Association would take him seriously. So for the past 50 years, they've been fully aware of Dr. Bernstein and his reversing of these diabetic complications and all of these successes and all of the successes at his practice that he has in New York. They're aware of all of these things, but they're still going to just shaft a bunch of diabetics, fuck them. And especially with type 2, like type 1 is one thing where type 1 is basically, normalizing blood sugars to 83, and then holding out hope for a cure where pancreatic beta cells can be regenerated or transplanted or something along those lines. For type 2, that's even bigger scam, because that's entirely reversible. And typically in a span of a couple months, there's a Dr. Jason Fung, who wrote a really good book on the subject. I don't remember off the top of my head. I can put it in the show notes after I get done recording here. But yeah, I mean, there are plenty of doctors who just by lifestyle, they can be off their type 2, diabetic medication within like a month or within 2 weeks. Like, this stuff works. It works, and why isn't it being advertised to the medical community at large? Well, there's conflicts of interest. There's a lot of conflicts of interest, and yeah, it's disappointing. I'm all for making money, but not if you're putting your patients at risk for long-term diabetic complications. I think it's fraud. Because if I'm going to a doctor, and if I'm a type 1 diabetic, I'm going to a doctor, and the agreement is that they're going to take care of me and minimize the risk of diabetic complications. Well, if all the advice they're giving me is guaranteeing it, I consider that fraud to a certain degree. So again, I'm all for making money, but this is a problem. It's a major problem. But thankfully, there's some solutions. As I said, there's these entire communities of type 1 diabetics. They've just ignored the advice of their doctors because what they were doing was not working. It just wasn't. So the second point is this. On that note, next time you see someone ridicule a normal individual like non-medical professional, for doing their own research on some health-related topic and going against so-called settled science, I want you to remember this example, that for the past 50 years, and it's not like this is new information, they just haven't had a chance to adjust or, shift their standards of care or whatever they want to call it. This has been, out there for 50, before insulin, low-carb diets were the only way to manage diabetes. It was the only way. So this information has been out there. The fact that doctors and nutritionists and folks like that aren't promoting it to diabetics is, it's frustrating to say the least. To say the least. So, these individuals and these families, they've been able to do what the entire medical industry has failed miserably at. So, obviously, don't be so open-minded your brain falls out. That silly, cliche saying. But in this fiat world, most everything is bullshit. That's just what I've come to figure out is, and I'd say 5 years ago, 6 years ago even, I was kind of already, or I'd say 5 years ago for sure. I was already on this path of, unlearning all the things I was taught in government indoctrination, and trying to relearn, what's relearn what's actually true. I guess the one area that I really didn't apply it was my diabetes specifically, because we did talk about on Liberty Attack Radio. This had been in 2015 and 2016. We did a couple episodes on scientific consensus. Me and Daryl Becker, and in the second installment, Dr. Stephanie Murphy joined us too. But yeah, today the world of modern science and scientism is a problem. It's a real problem, and for like especially for diseases like diabetes, I mean, you're basically on your own. You are on your own, because how can you trust that? Like if a study X shows Y, well, how do you know that study was not funded by the pharmaceutical company that is trying to sell you the drug to cure, whatever X disease is? Right? How do you know? Like, you can't know. It's really hard to know. And how do you know that your doctor is providing you with this accurate information? How do you know that he hadn't received a bunch of money from one of these pharmaceutical companies to push some drug? Unless he tells you. And is your doctor going to tell you that if he's being paid paid a bunch of money by pharmaceutical companies to push a drug? No, he's not going to tell you. So the idea is, as anarchists and Venuans, there really aren't any institutions that we trust, right? Whether it's education, whatever industry it is, there really aren't many that anarchists and Venuans trust. But I'd highly recommend, this same sort of mindset. I'd recommend that it apply to the medical and nutritional industry as well. Don't trust but verify everything. I mean, it's gotten to the point now where I'm eliminating things that could do damage. Like I quit nicotine too, nicotine, drinking, all that, because I'm trying to get my health under control. Like I'm to the point now where before I buy water, I look at the water quality reports, because that's another scary thing. And I don't know if Jason Booth is here, but he shared a link on Fascist Book probably a couple weeks ago. And it was I guess a third party certification or testing company that you put in your zip code, and it shows you the quality of water, and quality the water quality, like the tap quality. And the one that he shared, and the one in my locale where I looked, it's full of carcinogens, at unapproved levels, like higher than what's approved. So, it is really, really to the point now that, you can't trust anything or anyone. You gotta verify everything for yourself. That's where I'm at. I wish it wasn't like that, right? I wish it was easier to trust people who should know better, right? They've gone to higher level they've gone to college for high level indoctrination for 8 years to study medicine. You would hope that they would be able to give you that accurate information. And in some cases they can, but there are other special vested interests, conflicts of interest. And Dr. Jason Fung did a really, really great gave a really great talk that's on YouTube. Just if you type in Dr. Jason Fung conflicts of interest or something on those lines, you'll find it. But it's a problem, and yeah, as I said, Daryl Becker and I talked about this a couple of years ago on LUA Radio. It's a real problem, and thankfully, it seems like the pushback or the solution to this is, again, very much individualistic, very much in line with Vonuan anarchy, I would say. And that so there's a guy named Dave Feldman who runs a website called cholesterolcode.com. He started a foundation called the Citizen Science Foundation, and it's basically N=1 studies, where basically just individuals do tests on their body, and it's very scientific, and they provide their results. What happened. I stopped eating saturated fats, and my LDL cholesterol did this. Like there all of these studies trying to figure out what's causation. What's affecting what. So there's that. There's the Open Insulin Project. There's a lot of there's a lot of these things popping up where the focus is decentralization, at least to some degree, and returning back to the individual. I think most people inherently know that there's a problem. Something is wrong, right? Because with obviously there have been some significant advances in medicine. Of course there have been. There have been some significant advances. I'm not saying there haven't been. But with our alleged level of knowledge, I guess the touted level of knowledge, or the perception of modern science and health, you'd think that the incidence of heart attack and stroke and Alzheimer's and all these things would be decreasing, but that's not what's happening. It's not. So there's things that are terribly wrong, and just as when we're talking about Vonu and self-liberation, the idea is not necessarily to just the idea is not to try to find freedom by joining a political crusade. That's not going to work. It's not going to be effective. Likewise with these massive massive pharmaceutical industry, big pharma. There's not much you can do individually to change that institution, but what you can do is take control of your own health, and do your own research and verify or debunk what you've been told, and go from there. But it's I know, like, going through some of that backstory, you might have been a little confused, like where's he getting at here? But the idea is, it's the same. It's totally the same. It's if you want freedom, you've got to build freedom for yourself. And if you want health, if you want good health, you should probably stop trusting your fucking doctor, unless you have a really good one. And I guess one more anecdotal example for the diabetes, how especially diabetics are on their own, is I went to the doctor, and a nurse's assistant came in, and I had told her before she walked out that I was a type 1 diabetic. She walked back in and said I had to refresh myself on the difference between type 1 and type 2. That's what she said. She'd been a doctor for like 20 years. And so, like, it's just there's so much wrong. There's absolutely so much wrong, and I don't know. It's relevant to Vonu, because if you don't have your health, I mean, if you feel like dog shit all the time, and you're going to be heading towards an early grave for one reason or another. I mean, what's the point of being invulnerable? Trying to become invulnerable to coercion. It's I don't know. So I'll check chat here again. Bruno, good deal, bro. Happy to hear you're feeling better. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I definitely appreciate it. Phoenix, Fourth Use Vinegar Collective allows free people to synthesize their own drugs. Yes, I interviewed Dr. Michael Laufer here on the Vonu podcast. They're doing a lot of really, really incredible stuff, and that's exactly the same kind of the mindset that I'm talking about. It's and maybe it wasn't like this, and for previous generations, like there used to be kind of that you could trust your local doctor, but that's just not really how it is today. It's not. And I guess another example, another anecdotal example. Yeah, when I got that high A1C before the Midwest Peace Liberty Fest, her advice should have been, maybe cut back on carbs a little bit. That might be a wise idea. But no, she just left me a voicemail. Just left me a voicemail. Yeah, your A1C went up. Maybe give more insulin. That's it. So yeah, I mean, it's a problem. It's totally a problem, and I'm happy to see the shift towards away from away from kind of that appeal to authority or appeal to that to the institution of big pharma. People are realizing that a lot of things they've been told are bullshit. And a lot of different areas. I think it's just what's unique to Vonuans and anarchists is if it's pervasive in one institution, it's probably pervasive in other institutions as well. Similar institutions of size. So, yeah, I suppose that's kind of rant over here. But yeah, and in summation, I do plan on doing an entire series on this, titled something like Health Liberation, Self-Liberation. And it won't be focused on diet, as that's ultimately an individually based thing. And type 1 diabetics, some of them are doing vegan keto, some of them are eating carnivore diets like me with intermittent fasting. I mean, other folks who don't have diabetes are just adopting low carb diets. and having great success. So but yeah, I don't know. I feel like health is just something we need to spend a lot more time on. I don't know how the series is going to look. I'm not sure. I gotta think on it more. But it's just too important of a subject to be passed up. To not spend a bunch of time on. So yeah, we will, especially now that I've outsourced editing of the podcast. So I just gotta record, and then yeah, that's all the work that I have to do. So that's good. So yeah, I think I'll end there for now on the health topic and the rants. But yeah, I'm open to any questions in chats or comments in chat before I get on to the last segment of today's show. So what do we got? Matt S. Cool to hear you discuss health. I went keto back in 2011 and lost 100 pounds before I found anarchism, and was a big step in my journey as I realized our rulers were wrong on more than just diet. Yes, yeah, exactly. And that was, as I said, like I started the keto diet just basically to see if it would help me control my diabetes better. I had no idea what I was doing. But yeah, within the span of like 2 to 3 weeks, I lost like 15 pounds. And then over the course of the next couple of weeks, I lost another 7 or 8. So I went from 170 pounds down to like 148. And when I lost that weight, I'd never worked out. I hadn't worked out before. Once I lost all that weight, I was like, I got all this energy now. So I started exercising too. So like it seems like I thought people were exaggerating when they talked about diets. Like, diet's everything. Like, diet's super important. For me, I kind of ignored that, but it's true. It's I think the most important thing. Because and it's not just the diet, it's the snowballing of effects. It's the fact that when you're eating better, you're not just eating the standard American diet, which is fucking garbage. I don't think anyone will dispute that. The standard American diet is garbage. But yeah, once you the low carb, you start to feel better. Well, for most people, I would say for most people, they start to feel better. They lose weight, then they start to exercise, and then just like their health improves drastically. And then their LDL cholesterol goes up, and their doctors fucking freak out and try to prescribe them statins, which did happen to me, by the way. Yeah, of course. From all my research, there's a really interesting cardiologist. His name's Dr. Nadir Ali, and he's actually a cardiologist that's against statins. So there's a lot of really interesting information out there. And before it came to anarchism, when I was actually still in high school, I loved biology, I loved genetics, I loved all of this stuff. So now that I've kind of I have obviously again a vested special interest in acquiring this knowledge because it impacts my health. So it's been even beyond just the health portion. I mean, to me, this stuff is just fascinating. But yeah, Matt, I'm happy to hear that keto worked well for you. That's fantastic. Yeah, it's fantastic to hear. So, yeah, I guess the moral of the story here is yeah, most everything in a fiat world is bullshit. So if it applies, if you look at one institution that you're more knowledgeable on, and you see all the flaws there, then just apply that to other areas, other institutions as well. It's kind of like an example that I give is like if you look at a mainstream media article, like let's say it's a mainstream media article on Bitcoin. Like I'm pretty knowledgeable on Bitcoin, I would say, especially whenever it's going to be something written about in mainstream media. So like for Bitcoin, I'd go and read a mainstream media article on Bitcoin, and like let's say generally speaking, most of the time they have no understanding whatsoever. They do like there's no understanding, right? But to someone who doesn't know anything about Bitcoin, they wouldn't know that. So one thing I recommend to state is primarily is choose your favorite news source. It's news source doesn't matter. The point is the subject. So find a subject that you're specialized in, that you have a lot of knowledge in, and you'll very quickly see that yeah, people don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Generally speaking, that tends to be the case. And I guess one other aspect of this investigation that's been interesting is and this kind of I guess not even alternative science. It's just kind of I guess in these developing fields, most of these folks are a lot more humble. It's like we don't know 100%. whether coffee will inhibit autophagy. We don't know these things. Whereas if you look at the medical industry, generally speaking, it's you want to cure this disease, here's a drug. You want to do this, here's how you do it. Like it seems to be less humble, more arrogant when it shouldn't be that way. Shouldn't be that way. But let's see here. I'll check chat. Bruno, I've been trying to convince my mom to drop the stats, but after a heart attack last year, she's too frightened to break outside her doctor's recommendations. That's understandable, and for statins, I guess. From the research I've done, if you've had a heart attack, there's actually if you've already had a heart attack or a stroke, they might actually they might actually help a little bit. But if you have no history of heart attack or stroke, then I think Dr. Nadir Ali said that it's like a 1% chance of it helping something with a whole bunch of negative side effects. Very deadly. Not good side effects. Not good side effects. But I'll drop some links in the show notes. I'm not gonna just recount everything that I've looked into. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting information out there, and yeah, I mean it's stuff. I know quite a few people on statins. I mean they prescribe them to everybody. They prescribe them to everybody. Like for type 1 diabetics, if you're a type 1 diabetic, they'll automatically prescribe them to you. And for me, being 27 years old, they'd expect me to be on that for my entire life, for like 40 years. And there's no, that's another sad thing, is there's no apprehension when they're going to prescribe you something that you'll have to take for the rest of your life. Probably. Being prescribed something for 40 years is not natural. It can't be a good thing. Can't be a good thing. So, I don't know. Anyway. You guys got any other questions or comments here in chat, or I will, I guess, move on to the final part of the broadcast here. Yeah, do not see anything right now, so I'll go ahead and get on with it. And yeah, if anything pops in before the stream ends, I can certainly jump back and address it. So I wanted to take a moment here. I've sent it out to my email list, which if you haven't signed up for that yet, just go to libertyunderattack.com and you'll see right there on the homepage. There's a field for your first name and your email address. I don't want any more information than that. The first name is just makes it a more personable email. So name, email address, and you'll get actually 3 free digital books. And then you'll get updates such as these. But we're going to have some holiday specials over at Liberty Under Attack Publications. And switch this real quick, starting on November 29th to December 2nd, we'll be offering 25% off all books and bundles, which is quite a bit more than what we typically offer. So 25% off all books and bundles for I guess it'd be from Black Friday to Cyber Monday. And then I guess on the author services side, from November 29th, Black Friday, to the end of the year, or I guess till 1/1/2020, 50% off proofreading and editing. So if you're an author with your manuscript you've been wanting to get a professional set of eyes on, then there's no better time to hit us up and utilize our services. Again, 50% off all proofreading and editing. And I would even include, like for our journalism, we've got not for books, but for journalists. If you're writing articles and such, and you want another professional set of eyes on it to improve it before it reaches your readers, we can help with that too. And generally speaking, I think it's for 2,500 words or less, it's $25. So for this deal, if you want to for a few months utilize some cheap proofreading services, that is certainly an option as well. So 25% all books and bundles from Black Friday to Cyber Monday, and then 50% off all proofreading and editing from Liberty Under Attack Publications. Just go to libertyunderattack.com to check out all the books in our catalog. And again, I will on Friday I will provide the coupon code for utilizing the 25% off deal. But yeah, if you want to go get a head start now, just go to libertyunderattack.com, or if you want to look at our author services, then just go to libertyunderattack.com/publish. So I'll take one more look at chat here. Don't see anything new. So all right, I think I'll go ahead and close out here then. thanks so much for attending, and please do consider supporting my work via LUA Publications. It's been an incredible year, and I thought about this when I was writing up that email, because it was really last year at this time. I was running the first deal. Like I at that time, I was only selling #Agora in my book, Finding a Strategy for Self-Liberation, and I I didn't know what I was doing back then. And it really wasn't until Acapulco at this time where I kind of went full bore with that with LUA Publications, and it's been an incredible year so far. February was when I really started pumping out books, and we've got 11 or 12 now, and we got author clients for author services. So it's incredible. I really appreciate all the support so far, and ongoing into the future. There aren't many liberty focused publishers that are interested in publishing this sort of content. And obviously, it's a smaller audience for this content, but again, like, this stuff's got to be out there for posterity, and all the digital stuff's out there, but I think it's good to get in paperback format as well. So libertyunderattack.com again is where you want to go if you'd like to check out what we offer over at LUA Publications. So on the other hand, if you'd like to contribute elsewhere, there's Bitbacker, bitbacker.io/user/Vonu podcast, as well as tippin.me/LUA radio if you'd like to tip Bitcoin via the Lightning Network. And I guess that's another thing I didn't really talk about, which I'll talk about it momentarily. But yeah, I'll take your fiat too, I suppose, if you want to send some US dollars, PayPal.me/LUA radio. So yeah, the last thing I'll mention, which I kind of forgot about. I kind of forgot about this, but I finally, it was a few months process. Had to send the first Nodl device back to. I haven't done anything with it yet. I still got to get an address for it. But the first Nodl that was sent malfunctioned. I got a second one sent out from France. So it was a few months process. But now I have my Lightning Network node set up. I've got my Bitcoin full node. And there's other stuff too. BTC Pay Server, there is an error, and that's not installable yet, but I will. And at that point, I will accept Lightning Network payments as well as self-hosted Bitcoin payments via BTC Pay Server. And there's other stuff I'm tooling around with, like Electrum X, Electrum Personal Server, things like that. And I will say, once you get no, and I mean, it had nothing to do with Bitcoin or the technology being too difficult. It was just hardware issues. They had a bad batch of hardware, and it caused a delay on things. But as far as getting stuff installed, it hasn't really been difficult. Not at all, really. It's pretty self-explanatory. They make it one-click installs. You click details, and you just click check boxes, or it tells you what information to provide to the Zap Lightning wallet or whatever it may be. So I do recommend the Nodl. I still do. 100%. And yeah, that they do not sponsor this podcast or anything. I just love the product, and it's why I still like Bitcoin and that's why I'm a maximalist BTC, is because I can run my own Bitcoin full node. I can do all these things. I can verify that the consensus rules are being followed. Whereas like on Ethereum, I don't think it's even possible to. I think if I remember correctly, I'm not sure how to. It's difficult to run a full node. I know that. It might not even fully sync. And then like for other ones with block size, with massive block sizes, imagine versus 2 megabyte blocks. If there's like 8 gigabyte blocks or something, if every block is 8 gigabytes, imagine how much storage is going to be needed for that. The terabyte or two that's in that Nodl would be gone pretty quick. So that's yeah, there you go. That's I guess my 2 cents. Don't trust anybody. Always verify yourself, especially when it comes to Bitcoin. And there's side benefits for it too. As I talked about with Max Hillebrand. If you run your own full node, you connect to your own full node, then your privacy is a lot better. So if you do those two things alone, run your own Bitcoin full node and never reuse addresses, you're pretty well off privacy wise. And that's even before you get into coin joins and mixing and things of that nature. So anyway, Nodl setup's gone good. I will. I said I'd put more content on that out, and I probably should. So, I guess that kind of wraps up things. Bruno, peace, man, and check your jar, homie. Awesome. Thank you, Bruno. I appreciate it, man. Certainly do appreciate it. So on that note, regular podcasts are on the way. Phoenix still got an audio engineer's help for the moment. Yes, the podcasts are taken care of, but I will have. I've got 3 narrators working on audiobook narrations right now. So when those come back, even if I snag one and do one, there's still quite a bit of audio engineering work. So we'll certainly be in touch. On that note, regular podcasts are on the way, my friends. Until next time, let's build the Agora and let's build a second realm. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for the support. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and laissez-faire.